Yesterday we learned about thermal remote sensing. Today we'll be speaking about micro remote sensing. So actually, in this link I have given study material link actually. So after this talk or after this lecture, you can just click on this one and you can find these things and these informations from these links. Actually, before that, I would like to discuss a few more things about EMR. The thing is, yesterday we learned that how this EMR plays a big role in remote sensing. So here I would like to speak about this radiation budget. I mean, how much energy is coming from sun and how much it is utilized and how much it is interacted with our atmosphere or earth like that. So we take this thing like if 100 units is, if 100 unit is coming from sun, then 90% of the 90 unit of that is absorbed by atmosphere. As I told you earlier that atmosphere has abundant gases. So those gases, they use to absorb radiation. So these gases, they may be ozone, oxygen, water vapor or carbon dioxide. So these gases, they used to trap the radiation, and then 51% of that is absorbed by surface. We know that even our surface, they used to absorb. Yesterday we learned about that Kirchhoff's law. A good emitter, a good absorber is a good emitter. So our objects in Earth, they also absorb plenty of those radiations. And actually a fraction of that, like 4% of that radiation, it just reflected back to the surface. And cloud, they play a big role in this one. So plenty of clouds are there in atmosphere, and we know they may be rainy clouds, they may be non-rainy clouds. So 20% or 20 unit of that incoming solar radiation, it is reflected back by the clouds. And 6% of that is reflected by atmosphere. Actually, in atmosphere, we know there are plenty of aerosols suspended in the air. So they also reflect solar radiation, and this is not less. Actually, 6% is not less unit. So those constituents or those suspended particle or the gaseous constituents, they reflect 6% of that particular radiation. So we will go into much depth in next slide. Here we can say there are so many things. The first thing which we must know is the radiation which is coming from sun, that we call as incoming short wave. And the thing which is going back to space, that we call as outgoing long wave radiation, because we know that during daytime only we get solar radiation, and it is in the visible part. So that's why it is called as short wave. Short wave means in the left side. Yesterday I have shown you one spectrum. So on the left side, we saw that in left side X-rays, ultraviolet, visible parts were there. So actually it is majority of visible part only. So we get incoming short wave radiation, that is called incoming solar radiation. And the thing which is going up, I mean the thing, a particular thing, it absorbs a particular radiation at certain wavelength and emit that at different wavelength. So that short wave radiation is there, incoming short wave radiation, and the thing which is which is going back or which is emitted back, it is in long wave radiation. When I say long wave, it may be either thermal or microwave too. So here we can find that part of that is reflected back by the clouds, and part of that is absorbed by the earth, and of course there is back scattering by air too. When intense air is blowing, so many atmospheric constituents are there in atmosphere, and that also scattered or reflect part of that radiation. Then we have reflection by our surface also. Yesterday we were speaking about albedo and all, so that comes in into that one. Then emission by clouds, emission by water vapor, and emission by gaseous constituents. Then absorption by cloud, water vapor, and gases. Actually, when rainfall happens, those rain drops, they also reflect as well as absorb some of the radiation. So raindrops or rainstorm also plays a big role there. Then actually, day before yesterday, you people were speaking about swath and field of view. So I thought to include few slides dedicated to that. So here we can see that this is suppose sensor. This is some satellite, and you know there is a angle of view, that is we call as angular extent of observable world or image. So that angular extent is called as field of view. And actually with that angular extent, what we see, we observe a particular section of image or a particular section in the ground or in atmosphere. So that particular section, which we define as area imagined on surface, that is called as swath. So there is a difference between field of view and swath. So field of view is just angular extent, and the swath is area imagined on the surface. And actually in that particular swath, we must have a scene. Suppose if we are looking at someone, as I told you earlier that human eyes, they are also a natural sensor. So when we are looking, suppose if we are looking straight, so what is our angular extent or what is our field of view? We may see like at 180 degree. I mean, we may see maximum up to this one and this one. So that area is like 180 degree. So we can say that human's eye or human have 180 degree field of view. Now imagine about few birds. Actually few birds, you know, they may twist their neck and they can see like 360 degree. I mean in human case, we may see maximum up to this one and maximum up to that one. So our angular extent is like 180 degree, but in few species of birds, they can have 360 degree angular extent. But in case of satellite, you know, satellite, they are not that much flexible. So plenty of them, they have certain field of view. So like 22 degree or 29 degree, 30 degree like that. So that angular extent is for that particular satellite. And of course, then see if we are talking about human. So suppose if I'm looking at certain crowd, so we can, it's for me, I mean for me it's difficult to identify each and every person if they are very far. So similar thing happens in our sensor also. Suppose our sensor is focusing towards a section, so it can distinguish a very small part of entire field of view. So that particular thing is called as scene. And in that particular scene also, if we ask that now you differentiate between so many things in that particular scene, then one small extent, one small entity, that is called as spatial resolution or a pixel of that particular scene. So in that particular scene, we may have n number of pixel. So that is called as spatial resolution. So in microwaves, there may be spatial resolution of 4 kilometer, 5 kilometer, even 50 kilometer. So that depends on the specification of our sensor. So similar thing here, I was speaking about no camera, humans or birds. So our humans have maximum, that field of view up to 180 degree. Camera, they are restricted maximum 40 degree or maximum 40 or 50 degree. Birds, few of the species, they may have 360 degree field of view. And this is how the swath looks. Actually, somebody was speaking on that. Somebody was asking how these swath looks. So this is how, this is a part, we have satellite and that resolves like from north to south or south to north pole. So one ascending path and one descending path. So for entire globe, it may suppose we can say there are 15 passes for ascending and again 15 for descending. So again, it depends on what is the swath width of that particular thing. So if we are, suppose if we are saying about SSMI or TRMM, then these are satellites which have like say 890 kilometer swath or 1150 kilometer swath. So here we can say both are there. Ascending, this one is ascending, and then there is a descending also. So here we have ascending swath and descending swath. Then we should come to that microwave remote sensing. So again, here we can say, I will start with this particular spectrum. So here we can say that maximum absorption is happening in ultraviolet visible or near infrared. Of course, in near infrared, selective absorption is there. But if we go beyond that, if we move towards right side, we can say that this absorption is decreased, and now maximum transmission is happening. So that's why microwave energy, they are treated, or they are regarded as all weather remote sensing, because those microwaves, due to larger wavelength, they are able to penetrate through the clouds and they can directly interact with objects. So here what happens, I'm talking about clouds with smaller droplet size. But suppose if we have cloud droplets, or if we have rainstorm which has very big cloud, big droplet size. Actually, I remember Dr. Nagmani, he was speaking about Mie scattering. So what happens in Mie scattering? See, in Rayleigh scattering, it may be in all directions, but for Mie scattering, it is selective scattering only. So if larger cloud droplets are there, then that fall under the category of Mie scattering. So here same thing is happening. So we have different bands of microwaves where very less absorption is there. Mostly it is transmission only. One or two absorption band is there, and that is for oxygen absorption band, 183 gigahertz. At 183 gigahertz. Apart from that, it is maximum transmission only. So this is for this one, we can say yesterday I was speaking about that window. So here the window is, you know, very wide. So for microwave, window size is very wide. It's like gate. So for microwave, it's not window, it's gate. Then again, we understand this with this particular picture of this EMR spectrum. So microsensor, actually they sense electromagnetic radiation in the micro region of EM spectrum. And this one we already learned about this visible and near infrared yesterday. So now the thing which we are going to speak will focus much on microwaves only. So what is happening here? Here we can say that, you know, this is radiation and it is able to penetrate through our clouds and rain systems. Again, I'm saying if raindrops are smaller or those cloud droplets are smaller, then only it will be able to penetrate. Otherwise, the disturbances will be there. Scattering will be there, absorption will be there. So it all depends on the size of cloud droplets or rain droplets. So the range is, say, we can say from 1 millimeter to 1 meter. And because of their larger wavelength, they are, I mean, as compared to visible and infrared, they have special properties that are important for remote sensing. They are able to, you know, pass through the environment and they can interact with objects in the earth. And then longer wavelength micro radiation can penetrate through cloud cover, haze, dust, and all. But the heaviest rainfall, as I told you earlier, no, but the heaviest rainfall as the longer wavelengths are not susceptible to atmospheric scattering, which affects shorter optical wavelength also. So this property actually allows detection of micro energy under all weather condition and environmental conditions, so that data can be collected at any time. So for this, we don't have to be dependent on daytime, or we have to wait for, you know, for thermal remote sensing, sometimes we have to wait for clear weather, because those weather, they always, you know, they always affect the radiation. So sometimes for few applications, we have to wait for, especially in the case of, you know, those things, especially in the case of agriculture application, we have to wait for clear weather, because the radiation, mostly it is attenuated with those atmospheric constituents. But in case of microwave, we don't have such limitations. They are regarded as all weather remote sensors. So here, this is the thing. Actually, I want you to know about this terrestrial radiation also. See, the thing is, as I told you earlier, that whenever incoming solar radiation is there, and with that incoming solar radiation, certain portion of that, it may reflect back to the space. But at the same time, there is absorption also. So absorption at one particular wavelength, but emission, or you know, but emission at the other wavelength. So here, this terrestrial thing is, it's not like immediate reflection. So at certain wavelength, this emission happens, and that is called as this terrestrial radiation. So there are two categories of this macro remote sensing. One is passive and other one is active remote sensing. Yesterday we learned that in active remote sensing, sensor has to use its own source of energy. It used to transmit its own signal, and that signal it just interacts with object, and based on the interaction or based on the signature which it is getting back from object, based on that it differentiates or it just explores the nature of that particular object. But in case of passive remote sensing, it depends on that EMR, that radiation from the sun. And here we can see that this is our sun and this is the sensor. So these earth objects, they are receiving energy from this one. And again, if it goes back, then sensor can sense them and it can explore that, okay, this is the characteristic of this particular object. And but here what happens, this one is absorbed at a particular radiation, but at different radiation or at different wavelength, it is again getting emitted or reflected, and based on that it gets signal, and depending on its analysis, it explores that, okay, this is the nature of this particular object. So this may either directly from radiation of sun, or maybe that that terrestrial radiation. Then this passive micro sensing. Passive micro sensing is similar in concept to thermal remote sensing. As I said, no, all object actually they emit radiation of same magnitude, but the amount are generally very small. So what happens that we need something which can receive all the signal, and it can distinguish or it can analyze the nature of that particular object. So what happens, a passive micro sensor detects the naturally emitted micro energy within its field of view, and this emitted energy is related to the temperature and moisture properties of the emitting object. Yesterday we learned that different objects, they have different properties, they have different thermal properties, they have different radiative properties. So depending on that, their emissivity is different, their reflectivity is different. So based on the difference in reflectivity and emissivity, our sensor is able to detect, or it is able to distinguish between these particular objects. Then we have, because the wavelengths are so long, we all know that wavelength, it is inversely related to frequency or intensity. If wavelengths are so long, then of course intensity is very small. So the thing is, see, if we are receiving very small intensity, then as it will propagate in atmosphere, or it will propagate in a particular medium, then the sensor it requires more energy to distinguish that, okay, this is the characteristic of this particular radiation. So the thing is, the sensor or the antenna, it requires more energy, and due to that that resolution is very poor in this case. So that's why most passive micro sensors, they are characterized by low spatial resolution. And then applications of passive microwave is actually multifold. It doesn't, it has application in meteorology, hydrology, oceanography, agriculture, in so many things. Actually in that for defense application also, these microwave, they have huge applications. Then this is the case of active microwave remote sensing. So as I told you earlier, that active microwave sensor, they have their own source of energy, and they used to transmit energy. That particular energy or radiation, it interacts with object, and sensor, it receives back scattering signal, and based on the based on the intensity of that back scattering or the time delay between the transmission and emission, it used to explore the nature of that particular object. So the strength of back scattered signal is measured to discriminate between different targets, and the time delay between the transmitted and reflected signal determines the distance or the range of that particular target. So in earlier days, these radars, they were being used for detection of aircrafts. This is again, if we are talking in terms of band, so here we can say this is actually basically, this is dedicated towards microwaves only. So we have different kind of band, like Ka band, Ku band, X band, C band, S band, L band, or the P band. So This Ka band is strongest of them because as we move toward this side, wavelengths are increasing, but frequency or intensity is decreasing. So actually, this is a blog. I want every one of you to just, just click, just copy this address and just paste there and see how interesting it was. Actually, during Second World War, those radar operators or those defense operators, they noticed that whenever rainy or stormy season or stormy weather is there, there is huge disturbance in the radar signal, and due to that they were not able to detect those aircraft properly. So they thought that this is a very big error, and so many times they used to miss those aircrafts. So they sit together, they sit together and they decided that let us find some way to this correct this error. But later in later stage they thought that, hey, this is actually a this is actually a plus point. We can use this one to detect rainfall, or we can use this one to detect the intensity of the storm. So finally, this limitation of radars they have utilized to to detect rainfall or to observe our weather. So this was a limitation which was converted to an advantage for for humankind. So you please read this blog. This is a very interesting one, and I'm sure that you will enjoy this one. So if we talk about radar system, so it has it has various components. So the first thing is it must have some antenna or some system which can transmit microwave signal towards an object which it wants to monitor. So it receives the portion of transmitted energy back scattered from the scene. Of course, when it will send some signal, that signal is going to interact with the object, and of course it will backscatter. And based on the extent of that backscattering, they define a term that is called as backscattering coefficient. And if we include or if we add all those backscattering coefficient, we will get one reflectivity factor. And based on that, we can monitor so many things like rainfall or those sea surface wind, so many parameters. So it observes the strength, the detection actually, and the time delay. See, when it will send some signal, and that signal, if it interacts with the object, it takes some time to return back. So that is called as time delay. And radar provides its own resource, and therefore they can operate both in day and night. So this is the advantage of this one. And this type of system is known as an active remote sensing, that we already learned actually. Then this is the formula actually by which we can see. Suppose if we have to detect one aircraft, so and suppose we have one ground-based radar, so it will send some signal. That signal, it will interact with that particular object or that particular aircraft, and it will come back. So there will be some time delay. So this delta t is that that time delay, and this is the distance, and then this is of course the actually this is also dependent on refractive index of air, because if it is very thick, it will take more time to come back. So it also depends on that. So this is the formula by which the distance between radar and that particular aircraft can be determined. Then this is the characteristic of radar remote sensing. Actually, we already had plenty of this one. So the first one is this has all weather capability, a small sensitivity towards clouds and light rain. Again, I'm emphasizing on the fact that when we are saying that, it means the clouds are having small droplets. But if those clouds are having big droplet with that ice crystal inside, then that is going to affect that radiation. Then in that case, that will not be called as all weather capability, because in that case clouds are definitely going to block them. Then light rain, and in case of heavy rain, it is definitely going to affect that radiation. Then day and night operation, this is true actually. So because it doesn't need visible part of spectrum for that. Then we don't need actually no effect of atmospheric constituents, because as we see that in that spectrum, what we saw that the transmission was almost 100%. So atmospheric absorption was very less. So here this thing can be ruled out. Atmospheric constituent impact will be very less. Then sensitivity towards dielectric properties. If some objects, they have water content or the biomass or ice, then definitely it is sensitive towards that one, and that sensitivity, it is going to affect the emissivity of that particular object, and based on different emissivity we can distinguish how much is the water content of that particular thing. So in nutshell, we can tell that, okay, this is the characteristic of this particular object. Then sensitivity towards the surface, actually this is used for ocean wind speed, because if heavy wind is there, then that wind is going to affect that wave, that sea surface wave, and it will cause roughening of those surface. And due to the roughening, the signal, see, if no roughening is there, then the signal which radar will receive, it will be very different as compared to the case where roughening will be there. So due to this thing, this sensitivity towards surface roughness, it can detect our ocean wind speed. Then accurate measurement of the distance. As I told you that it can accurately monitor how much is the difference between our antenna, between our radar and that aircraft. Then sensitivity to man-made objects. See what happens in suppose you want to monitor certain thing in atmosphere, and in the vicinity of that atmosphere there are some hills or there are trees, then these the signal, it is going to be affected by them also. So actually somebody is scratching in the screen, please don't do that. So it is going to affect that. Then sensitivity to target structure. So it all depends on the structure of target also. That is called as polarization, the orientation of orientation or the distribution of the molecules inside that particular object. Then this is the impact. This is the impact of clouds and rain on microwaves. So, Mona ma'am, somebody is scratching in that screen. Do that, please.
No, here everything is right only.
Okay, fine, but I can see the scribble, the scratching in the screen.
No, in my screen, they're not like that.
Okay, fine, it's okay. Okay, no problem. Okay, so let's focus on this one. So see what happens, as I told you, that this transmission, it depends on wavelength. So as we move from, from low wavelength to high wavelength, and again I'm emphasizing on the fact that when I say that from low to wave, it means from high to low intensity or from high to low frequency. So as we move towards that, we can say that transmission from high wavelength to low wavelength, it is reducing. Again, it is due to the fact that those ice crystals or those ice clouds or water droplets, it is affecting those microwaves little bit. But if the cloud droplet size or if the rain droplet size is very small, the transmission is almost 100%. Then why we use radar for remote sensing? So actually it can see through clouds. Yesterday I was talking about how these thermal remote sensors, they interact with the clouds. So what happens for thermal remote sensor? What we saw that there is a cloud system, and we have sensor over here, and this is a cloud. So radiation which is coming from ground, it will be high as compared to that coming from the cloud, because cloud is obscuring the radiation from earth to reach to sensor. But in this case, actually, these microwaves, they directly, they just penetrates the cloud and they are interacting with that particular sensor. So it is reaching to sensor directly, and the signal, it is interacting with that particular object directly without any interference. Then images can be high resolution. I again say can be, because it all depends on at what frequency or at what particular band we are using the observation. Then different feature are portrayed or discriminated compared to visible sensor. Visible sensor, they have so many limitations. They are limited during daytime. Reflectivity from visible sensor, from visible signals too high, and due to that, during cloudy weather or any weather, it is not possible to use visible sensors. So some surface features, they can be seen better in radar images, like ice or ocean waves, soil moisture, vegetation mass, man-made objects or buildings, and geological structures, rain and storms. Then this is a typical setup of this one. We have a transmitter or a receiver here, and you know that transmitter, it transmits some signal. This is a target, and this target it hit the target and it comes back. So based on that, it just note how much is the time delay and how much is the changes in that signal, and based on that, it just explores the nature, or it just explores the characteristic of that particular object. Then here what happens, this is just elongated one. The target reflects the pulse, and the reflected pulse travels back to microwave antenna where it is detected. Now the radar measures the time delay between the pulse which was transmitted and the pulse which was reflected, you know, the difference between that, and the time it takes the pulse to travel from the radar to target, it is called as range. So that range we have seen in that formula also. So yesterday we talked about, you know, this was the relationship between our brightness temperature and that you know, that kinetic temperature. Every object, they have their own kinetic temperature, but depending on emissivity or depending on internal structure, its brightness temperature may be different, may be very different. So brightness temperature can be related to kinetic temperature through this relationship, and due to this one, every object in the earth, they have different brightness temperature. So the sensor, the micro sensor, when it senses due to different brightness temperature, it is able to differentiate between various objects and various atmospheric constituents. So passive micro brightness temperature can be used to monitor temperature as well as properties related to emissivity. And in the micro region, materials have large variation in emissivity. As I told you yesterday, that due to various properties, the emissivity, it may be very different from one object to other object. Then these are a few of the micro radiometers which we had and which we are having actually. So the first one is that MSU, that is called as Advanced Microsonic Unit. It was launched in 1978 and it is available till now. Then we have scanning multi-channel micro radiometer, that is called as SSMRR, and it is available from 1981, but it ended in 1987. So there is there was limitation. The data was there for actually 5 years only. It worked for 6 years, but data availability was for 5 years only. Then we had SSMI. Now it is upgraded to SSMIS. So earlier it was special sensor micro imager. Now it is a special sensor micro imager and sounder too. So it started in 1987. It has different series. Now in present it is SSMI 10 or 11. Now then we had this was a breakthrough actually in that in these micro sensors. This was tropical rainfall measuring mission. It just brought a revolution in the field of weather monitoring from micro sensors. So this was launched in 1997, and somebody on day before yesterday, he was speaking whether it is possible to renew that thing. So it happened in the case of TRMM in 2002. Actually, it stopped working, but it was uplifted from one orbit to other orbit, and it worked till 2014. So they elongated its life for 12 more years. And this again, I'm telling you, this was very important. It brought a breakthrough in the field of weather monitoring from these micro sensors. Then we have this advanced micro scanning radiometer, that is MSRE, from 2002 to present. And actually, when I will be giving you few mini projects, I will ask you to use this TRMM and GPM data. GPM is also there. So I'll be talking in next slides. So these data, they are very important, and these data you can use to monitor Earth and atmosphere. Then these are the few of the applications: soil moisture, snow water equivalent, sea ice extent, concentration and type, and sea surface temperature, atmospheric water vapor, surface wind field, cloud liquid water, rainfall rate. And actually not only rainfall rate, we can also distinguish what is the phase of rainfall, whether it is in liquid state. We can say it is like precipitation rate. So precipitation, it may either be in the form of liquid or in solid, like snowfall or rainfall, or that hailstorm. So it has so many varieties. Then this is like monitoring temperature with passive microwaves. So again, the thing is microwave emissivity is a function of dielectric constant, and this dielectric constant, it can give you information about, the moisture content in the atmosphere. So depending on that, we can also, that most earth materials, they have dielectric constant in the range of 1 to 4, and dielectric constant liquid water is 80. So based on this one, we can monitor them. And thus this moisture content, it strongly affects emissivity, and based on that, the sensor, it distinguishes the nature of different emissivity, and based on that, it can estimate these parameters. Then this is atmospheric impact. What happens there? So at frequency less than 50 gigahertz, actually we have seen the, that spectrum of that microwaves. So what we saw that at certain frequencies, there was almost no absorption. So everything which was there, I mean, every signal which was there during that, at those frequencies, it was directly transmitted. So no absorption was there. But if we go beyond that, then there is a scattering or there is absorption. So this passive microwave can be used to monitor the land surface under cloudy conditions, because they just overcome that cloudy conditions, and they interact with other objects. And then atmospheric band. So even see, if we have certain water vapor suspended in the atmosphere, so what those water vapor do, those water vapor, it just absorbs microwave. So suppose if at certain point water vapor is there, and at certain point nothing is there. So what happens? We have a sensor here, and the signal from water vapor, it will be intense. It will be intense because absorption of those waves are there. Absorption of the signal is there. So what the sensor sees here, it will see it will see, or it will sense more energy. But if nothing is there, then that signal is weak or the energy is less. So based on that, it can distinguish the water vapor in atmosphere. And then this is one example of actually how this global water vapor was monitored at 5 gigahertz. Then we have two things actually: the rain over ocean and over land. Actually, it is for micro, it is very difficult to estimate rain over ocean and land with the same algorithm. The reason behind that is, suppose if we are speaking about microwave, suppose you are speaking about ocean, then micro emissivity of rain or the liquid water is about 0.9, and emissivity of ocean is much lower. So what happens? Changes in the emissivity provide and estimate the surface rain rate. But again, if we talk about, see, in the case of ocean, we have very homogeneous emissivity. So it is very easy to distinguish, that rain from other signal, because if rain drops are there, if rain droplets are there, then the sensor, it will sense more radiation, more signal, because that particular droplet, it has already absorbed radiation, and then the radiation which it is emitted towards our sensor, it is high. And if ocean only, if only oceans are there, the signal is very weak, like 0.5, emissivity 0.5. So if it sees less radiation or less signal, then that is ocean. But if it sees higher energy or higher signal, then that is rain. But so over ocean, it is very easy to estimate rainfall. But now suppose if we are moving towards land, so land, we know it has so many things. It has pond, it has water, it has, there's those different kind of trees. So all these, they have different emissivities. So for sensor to detect rainfall is very difficult, because the sensor will get confused whether it is coming from various objects, and because those various objects, they have varieties of emissivity. So sensor will get confused whether it is coming from rain or from objects. So what happens over this land surface? We focus on higher frequency, and what happens with higher frequencies? As I told, with higher frequency, scattering will be much more. So if rain is there, then high scattering will be there, and due to that, sensor, it will sense less radiation, or it will sense less signal. So if less signal is there in that scattering, if less signal is there in that land, it will see that, okay, this is from rain. but from other objects that signal will be relatively more than rain. Then this is, passive micro remote sensing from space. These are few advantages and disadvantages. So advantage is, as we already have seen, that it will penetrate through non-precipitating clouds. Radiance is linearly related to temperature. So, and highly stable instrument calibration, global coverage, and wide swath. So what happens in case of your, thermal remote sensor? It used to see a particular section of globe. But in case of this microwave, it used to monitor entire globe from north to south. There may be gap in between, but the plus point is it will monitor entire globe with, with smaller swath. For thermal, it will continuously monitor a certain section with each and every inch of that particular area. But in case of microwave, it will monitor entire globe with limited swath. In between, there will be gaps also. But this is the disadvantage also. So larger field of waves, like 10 to 50 kilometers compared to visible or infrared. Variability in emissivity. So sometimes it is very difficult to distinguish between atmospheric constituent and Earth objects. And then polar orbital satellites, they provide this continuous temporal coverage. As I told you, there will be gap. And suppose in a day 15 coverage are there. Those 15 coverage, for example, for few swaths, it is say like 1050 UTC. Then for next, again for covering the same region, it may require one whole day. So there is gap between data, and that gap is both temporal as well as spatial. Then this is micro remote sensing over ocean and that ice. So we have we talked about radars. We talked about those passive sensors. We have in radar, we have two more categories like scatterometer, and those scatterometer, it used to monitor winds. Then we have polarimetric radiometer. Those polarimetric radiometer, actually it is able to distinguish between various form of rain. Maybe snowfall, maybe rainfall, or in rainfall also sometimes it is, we have both liquid as well as solid. Then we have altimeter also. Altimeter, what it does, it used to monitor the height. Suppose if we want to know what is the distance from a particular height to the ocean, so it just sends signal and it just receives that signal back, and based on the time delay and that back scattering coefficient, it will say that okay, this is the distance from that particular sensor to that particular sea height. Then we have radiometer and radar combination. Actually, what happens? There are few mission like TRMM. In TRMM, we have both TMI, that is called as micro imager, and we have PR also. Actually, TRMM was the first satellite which carried one space-bound radar. So it had PR, that is called as precision radar. So TRMM had both the combination of TMI plus PR. TMI means imager and PR means the radar, that active sensor. So it had combination of active plus passive. And for TRMM, it was upgraded to GPM now. So now we have global precipitation mission. In that, we have that advanced version of this TRMM. And again, there are dual polarization radar in that GPM, that is called a DPR. Then this is altimeters. I already told you what it does. It just sends some signal and it just receives it back. So depending on how much delay is there, it just estimates this altitude. Then these are the algorithm for hydrometeors actually. Suppose if we have to find the intensity of a hydrometeor, what is hydrometeor actually? Hydrometeor is a rain system. It doesn't matter whether it is raining or non-raining. So it is like one big cloud systems are there. It may be in mixed phase, both ice and liquid, or it may, if it is below certain height, it is in liquid state only. If it is above certain height, it is in solid state. But in between also, there may be hydrometers which have both the phase, liquid as well as solid. So this micro remote sensor, it can distinguish that also. So based on this, actually I will show this picture. So this is over ocean. What happens there? I already told you, there's this cloud one is this absorbs radiation, and it has a high emissivity as compared to the ground. So what it will do now, suppose we have sensor over here. The sensor, the signal which it will receive from cloud, it will be higher as compared to the one which it will receive from ground. So this one will have higher TB, and the signal from ground it will have lower TB. So based on that, it says that okay, if higher TB is there, then it is a heavy rainfall. So now for the same cloud system, we have ground-based rain gauge also. So at the same time and at the same place, we will see how much is the rainfall over there. And then we are going to relate with TB. And based on that relationship, we will estimate this rainfall from British temperature. Now, what happens over your land region? See, as I told you, land is, basically it has so many objects, and those objects, they have varieties of emissivity. So if heavy clouds or heavy rain systems are there, here it uses, high frequency channel. And that high frequency channel, it just get scattered. So what the sensor sees here, it will see almost less TB or almost no TB here. But if nothing is there, if no clouds are there, it will observe higher TB. So here the scenario is reversed. So based on lower TB, it will say that heavy rainfall is there. But if high TB is there over land, it will say that no, this is clear weather. Nothing is there. No rainfall is there. No hydrometers are suspended over there. Then this is actually this is rainfall which we estimated and compared with global product. This is again one swath. If somebody is interested, know what is that thing. So this is for entire swath. This swath is actually this is lesser as compared to this one. This is wider swath, and this is narrower swath. So, but here we can say the rainfall, they are almost similar. So again, what we did, we just estimated rainfall using that British temperature, and then we compared it with global product. Then this is actually one very important application is that scatterometers. So scatterometers, they send microwave pulses to Earth radiation. And you know what, if heavy wind is there, those heavy winds, it is going to affect our sea surface. And it is going to roughen them. It is going to create rough on those surface. And that rough, the signal from rough, if signal is incoming from a scatterometer and it interacts with that rough, and suppose a scenario where no roughening is there, if very less wind is there, then no roughening will be there. So the signal which it receives from roughening surface and smooth surface, it will be very different. So based on that, it will measure that, okay, how intense our wind system is. So depending on the back scattering signal, it will estimate that, okay, if this much is the roughening, then this much is the wind speed. Then actually I want to show a few of important passive micro sensors. So I was talking about SSMI, so this is available actually. This is available till now. So it has various versions. So now we have, I think, 11th or 12th of this series. So this SSMI is actually, it's a 7 channel it has. When I say 7, it is actually at 19.35, it is both. I mean, it is polarized. So vertically plus horizontally polarized signal here. This is actually 22 is that water vapor absorption. So here only, if water vapor is there, so polarization is not there. So here both dual polarization is there. So 2 channels here, 1 here, again at 37, 2 channels, plus here also 2 channels. So 2, 2, 2 plus 1, so 7 channels, but 4 frequencies. So SSMI is a 7 channel 4 frequency sensor, and it has very wide swath, 1394 kilometer. And it was able to detect that category 5 cyclone over Western Pacific Ocean. And this is how, I mean, we can say that, see, you can say it is able to detect the structure of the cyclone, that spiral one. So if low TBs are there, means heavy probability of those hydrometers inside. So depending on that, and of course this one is inverted just to show that red portion is intense activities, intense cyclonic activities. Then we have advanced version, or we can say level 2 of that SSMI, and it was launched in 1997. This one is a unique satellite which had both active plus passive sensors, and it carried first space-bound radar. And again, I'm telling you, it brought revolution in the field of weather monitoring, because space-bound radar was, it was just imagination, it was frictional. But this NASA and JAXA, Indo and Japan, they both made it possible. And they made sure that we had first air-based radar, and that was able to detect rainfall in various form. I mean, you know that structure of raindrops and the content of raindrop. And then it had one TMI also, and TMI was like 5 frequencies plus, but 11, 11 channels. So again here 10.7, it was both vertically and horizontally polarized. 19.4 vertically and horizontally polarized. This 21.3 was water vapor absorption channels, only one polarization, either vertical or horizontal. 37 again two polarization, 85 again 2 polarization. So it was like 11 channel. 11 channel sensor, and it was able to monitor everything from moisture, from atmospheric moisture to rainfall at various rainfall of various categories. Then this is that monitoring of cyclone Gonu. So this internal thing is PR, and the external swath is of TMI. TMI had wider swath, the PR had that narrower swath. So this is the common thing. I mean, this is common, which was monitored by both PR and TMI. Then we had that advanced version that is called as the GPM. So this is, as I told you, this is Global Precipitation Mission. It was launched in 2014, and this GMI is characterized by 13 microwaves. See, from 7 to 11, then GPM had now 13. So, and the frequency range is from 10 gigahertz to 183. So you see that now those systems or those sensors, they are just getting advanced with each passing decades. And it has dual frequency precipitation radar at 13.6 and 37 gigahertz both. Then this is, how this Numa cyclone was detected by the GMI. GMI is again like similar like TMI. That was TRM microwave imager. This is global precipitation microwave imager. So it was able to detect that cyclone very efficiently. Then this is very big actually. It was able to, these are rain systems actually. How big those clouds are there, how towering they are, how much, what percentage of them are solid, what percentage of them are in liquid state. So this is like a 3-dimensional picture. So this GMI, it further brought evolution, and it was able to tell you accurately how much fraction of that particular is in both states. I mean, liquid plus solid plus other form. I mean, some are like super saturated. It may be, I mean, if it comes into contact with ice, it will be ice. But if it comes, if it remains in the liquid state, it will be in liquid state. So those are called as super cooled droplet. See how it is able to monitor them, how they are moving. And finally, you see, you can see it looks like clouds. It looks like, those cotton. I mean, if you apply the filter, it is able to tell you which region is very intense, which is little bit intense, and which is like green, like very less intense. So it is able to tell you everything. What is the size of that particular storm? What is the width? What is the length? Everything it is going to tell you. So it was just too much for this weather monitoring. Then this is our own mission actually. I don't know how many of you know that mean, our India with France, we had one joint mission that is called as Indo-French mission, that is Megatropics. So Mega is, Mega for cloud. Mega is Hindi word. It is called as cloud, and tropics, actually it is French word. Tropics means a tropic. Tropic in English and tropics in French. So this is the Indo-French mission. And, again, here we can see so many swaths, ascending and descending both. So it was able to, it was able to monitor our convective clouds. Then this is this was detected by this Megatropic. On Megatropic, there is a channel that is called Madras, and it is microwave channel only, and it has, again, like other imagers, it has also 9 channels, and those channels, they were able to detect it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yes, 9 channels. Then this is rainfall again from that TRMM, and we produced scattering index from that one. The scattering index again from higher frequency channel, and that scattering index was used to detect rainfall. We had one ground-based rain gauge stations, and we compared, or we calibrated our rain index with that, and based on that we formulated one equation, and that equation was used to estimate rainfall. And see this one, when we compared with radar, how it is looking. So, the radar, they have also very limited coverage. If signal goes beyond a particular distance, it will not be able to detect the thing. Similar thing like like our eyes. We are able to look beyond certain distance. We cannot look beyond that. So similar thing for radar also. So it was able to look up to this particular sphere, this particular range, and we can see the thing which we had, the rainfall technique, it is able to monitor rainfall very accurately. The position, the intensity, everything was almost like radar only. So this was all about microwave remote sensors. So I have planned that for your mini projects, I will share a few of the data with you, and you just try to plot them. You just try to read the data, and let's have your own conclusion for that. You can ask your questions. Yeah, where to download? Okay, let us start from there. Don't scribble, that's why. Don't scratch. Yeah, Chinmay had a question, any website to access radar data or any micro data? Yes, there are plenty of sources, and I'm going to share each of sources with you, and I will make sure that you get full access to that. Actually, I have one more sessions on geophysical parameter. During that time, I will give you everything. I will give you each and every detail. Actually, radar data, few of them, they are freely available, but for them they used to charge. But I have few radar data I will share with you. And for microwaves, plenty of those microwaves data, they are free. Like TRMM sites, actually one site is there. There you can access all those data. It is freely available. So we have both free data plus the data which the data for which we have to pay. So I will make sure that I will give you each and every detail of those data. Then there is question by Yamuna. If it is possible, microsensor is used to retrieve ocean salinity. Actually, salinity is a difficult thing. For ocean salinity, microwaves can be used, but the accuracy will be very questionable. We cannot rely on that. For oceanic salinity, there are special sensors which can be used for that. Sea surface salinity can be retrieved by remote sensing only, but using only microwave will be little bit trickier. And then then Chinmay Dongre asked from where to download TRM data. I will share that link with you. Then GRACE data has anything to do with micro remote sensing? Actually, few of them are for micro remote sensing, but it is not dedicated to entirely for this microwave. Then weather prediction of local weather condition possible through satellites? If yes, farmers can decide the exact time of sowing to harvest. Actually, see, again, I'm telling you, Prem, the thing is, prediction of weather is very difficult. See, we can predict, people are predicting, agencies are predicting, but the accuracy of those prediction is very questionable. Actually, it's most of the time I felt that this is just for namesake. It doesn't benefit much. So what kind of revolution did TRMM bring in the field of weather forecasting? I can say weather monitoring. Actually, weather monitoring and weather forecasting, they are different. So weather forecasting means you are predicting weather in advance, like what will happen after 1 week or what will happen tomorrow. But weather prediction is, weather monitoring is like what is happening now, that real time prediction. So what happens, see, TRM can be used for weather forecasting also. What we need for forecasting is we must have initial condition and we have to keep the initial condition in some models. And that model based on few mathematical equation, it will predict you those things. It will forecast you, it will forecast weather. But again, the problem is this weather, it is not, straightforward. It may change rapidly. It is very dynamic. So again, this forecasting thing is very, very difficult and very tricky. Yeah, again, see, Pooja, if it is from solar, then that intensity or then the power of that signal will be more. The terrestrial radiation, it is weaker as compared to that direct reflection from sun. Does micro remote sensing can be used only for weather? No, not for weather forecasting. I told you, weather. You talk about weather monitoring. Not, it has applications in water resources, in agriculture. See, if you have looked at timetable carefully, then you will come to know that in coming days we are going to tell you various application of these certain type of remote sensing. The idea behind these micro thermal was to give you certain amount of knowledge, so that in near future when we give you data or when we tell you about application, you can understand what is happening and how it is being done. So it has a application in various fields, not only in weather monitoring or weather forecasting. Can we use MRS to detect the type of, what is MRS? Can you please elaborate this one, Pooja? Micro remote sensing. Yeah, types can be, as I told you, see, various type of, if we say that we have convective cloud. So convective cloud means cloud droplet size is very big and it is mixed. I mean, it is having both liquid as well as solid. So that is convective cloud. And if heavy scattering is there, then we can say that this is from convective cloud. Now consider some shallow clouds, or we can say the warm cloud or low level cloud. So usually they have only the cloud droplets, and the scattering is weak. The scattering is not that much. So depending on the extent of the scattering, we can detect different kind of clouds. Can we use micro remote sensing to detect the pollutants like oil spill in ocean? Oil spill in ocean, actually, those I hear that those inquest people, they are doing, but again, they are not able to tell you how accurate is that one. Yes, people are doing, but again, the problem is that accuracy is questionable. Then for groundwater, actually, see, that, see, if we are talking in terms of only remote sensing, then remote sensors, they may not detect you the depth of, you mean to say groundwater level, or that quality of, that water there. What is his name? Chinmay, can you elaborate it? Yeah, for that level, only depending on that micro remote sensing is not enough. Actually, now various sensors, they are being developed for that one. Then can we use the wait. Why is larger field of view a disadvantage, but wide swath? And see, if we have larger field of view, what happens? See, you just consider that you are looking at certain thing. If you have larger field of view, you must have, you know, the little bit idea about what are there in your field of view, but you will not be able to distinguish between the things over there. See, so many things are there. It is quite natural. If so many things are there, you will not be able to focus individual things. But if you have very limited swath, if you have very limited limited exposure, limited vision, then you will be able to detect what is happening within that thing. A simple thing. Yes, this actually, yeah, that's, and then can we use the macro remote sensing to study geological features like, yeah, fall, that we can do, that we are doing actually. Now we have, our sensors, they are too fine actually, and that those fine tuned sensors, they can be able to use that, they can able to detect these faults. How far can farmers holding small plots or land benefit from satellite data? Prem, I'm not able to get your question. Can you unmute yourself and can you speak?
Hi,
Yeah,
Dr.
please tell me, Prem.
See, my question is like, suppose we are taking it as a business to farmers, okay,
Mm-hmm.
the satellite data. So in this
Can you
case,
please little bit speak louder?
what I'm trying to say is, if the farmers who are holding the small plot of land, uh, can we benefit out of them through some business using the satellite data?
Actually, if you say that only using microwave or any kind of remote sensor.
Any kind of satellite data.
Actually, if we use, you know, drone based sensor, then that is possible, but from that much distance, little bit trickier again.
But drone data is quite expensive, which
Not, who told you drone data is expensive? No, drone data is not. The thing is, you need to have permission from, you know, government or the authorities. That's it.
no, but however, the
Mm-hmm.
multispectral camera, which we call Altum or Red Edge, those are some 13 lakhs or 15 lakhs.
Actually, Prem, I tell you now, since last few years, what the people are doing, they give you, they give you those sensors on rent. You can take those data, you can take those sensors for a few days only, and you can charge on, you know, that rental basis. Very cheap now. So gone are
No,
the when, you know, you have to pay heavily for those things. Now,
no, my company who owns that camera.
mm-hmm.
So my question will be, what will be the return on investment? So we have invested some 13 lakhs,
Please, little
and
bit loudly, please, louder.
yeah. See, we have invested some 40 lakhs. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
what will be the return on investment? How long it will take for me to get the
Or
money?
drone.
Not for just drone. If I'm starting up a service for
Mm-hmm.
farmers
Mm-hmm.
with drones. See, drones means there are many regulations, laid out by the DGCA, right? So a drone would cost around between 10 to 15 lakhs.
See, the thing which I got from you, you want to say that you have a small amount and that you want to invest for benefit of farmers. Is it true?
Benefit to the farmers, as well as if I
Yeah, for you, of course. I mean, this you are doing for investment purpose, isn't it?
yeah, investing, and even I should
See,
be.
I tell you, Prem, actually, you know, I'm sorry to say, but in India, you know, condition of farmers, it is very bad. Government, they are taking so much initiatives for the welfare of farmers, but again, I feel that, plenty of things are required to be done further. And this thing, business, you know, that agriculture, investment in agriculture, very difficult and it's not beneficial, I think.
Okay, just one personal question. Is it
But
possible?
again, I telling you,
Yeah.
this Modi government now, they are supporting so much, so you can explore the things, and you know, you can
Okay.
have some opinion from, you know, the specialists in this one. I'm sure that there may be some counselor who can help you in this field.
Okay, and just one personal question on this, since it is a bit on the subject only. See,
Mm-hmm.
is it possible to detect infestation on a crop using a drone-based
Detect what, Prem?
infestation of a what is a pest infestation?
Yes, yes. Actually, I tell you, 4 or 5 months before, we had a discussion with scientists from NRC, and the project was on same thing. I mean, two things were there. The first one is detection of actual disease, and then based on that, what kind of pest or what kind of those things are required for that removal of those disease. So it is very much possible nowadays. The hyperspectral imagers are there. So hyperspectral micro remote sensing can be used for that.
Okay, but again, hyperspectral camera is ranges from 40 lakhs to 70 lakhs.
No, you don't need to do that. Now NRSC, they used to give this data that you can pay. That is not very costly. You can pay from your pocket. They will give you data. You can.
But the spatial resolution will not be that accurate, no, of satellite images.
No, hyperspectral images are so accurate, and they are very they are having very good resolution too.
What is the spatial resolution?
It depends actually what kind of hyperspectral sensor you are talking about. So I tell you, it is possible for you to detect up to 2 meter resolution, 2 meter or 1 meter.
But with 2 meter, it is not possible to detect because centimeter level it is possible to detect. For detecting a pest, centimeter level spatial resolution itself is difficult for us to do it. Then
it again depends on which application you want to focus on, Prem.
Okay, I won't take much of your time. Just one question. Recently, we had an issue with this western part of Rajasthan and Punjab. The swarm of locusts from Pakistan flew towards India. So these locusts have been large swarm. Can this be detected with satellite images with any of these spectra?
Again, I'm telling you, drone is the best. See, you can have satellite now. See, now even satellites are there which can give you very good resolution. But the best way to detect them is drone. That is the best way. And I hear that in India, few government they have used drone, and they just took some medicine or some chemicals and they just sprayed on them.
Yeah, actually, my company is planning to do that. But thanks for information. My company is trying to do that.
Okay,
thanks for your
yeah, that is a good idea. Yeah, you can use the drone always.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Dr.
Okay, yeah. Then somebody is asking, what is the use of water resources? Water resources has so many use, Subramaniam. So your thesis is based on this water resources, and you are saying what is the use of, your question is wrong. You can repeat your question. Don't ask what is the use of water resources. Water resources has, multifold uses. Then Nagaraju is asking to detect, for detection of lightning and thunderstorm cloud using remote. Yes, remote sensing, micro remote sensing can be used for detection of lightning and thunderstorm. Then there is a question by by Syamla. Can we apply in archaeological field? Yes, micro remote sensing can be used for archaeological study purposes. Anything else?
I think that's it enough. You have covered all those things.
Okay, participant, thank you very much. So I'll be sharing this slide with you people, and of course, as I show you that in the first slide itself, I have kept one link, and by clicking on that link, you will get study material for that. Thank you so much, ma'am. You can end the meeting now.
Yeah, no, okay.